Do you mind stepping to the podium and giving our invocation, please, sir?
Let's pray. Our Heavenly Father, we come again to you tonight. Put your arms all over these council people and the people in the audience, oh Lord. We give you the honor and the praise. Amen.
Thank you, Kent. That's the first time in my tenure that we've had one person give the invocation twice in a row, so thank you. Move forward, call this meeting to order. Let the record reflect that all members of council are present. All members of council are present. We do need to move, before we move to the approval of the agenda, we need to amend section 7. When we adjourn to executive session, we need to add legal issue as item number 1 and move the personnel issue to item number 2. I'll need a motion for approval of the agenda as amended.
Move to approve.
I have a motion by Ms. Malcolm and a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Gregory. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries, that passes. Moving to the approval of the consent agenda. This is council minutes from July 12th and 17th, executive session from the 12th, planning commission meeting, historic preservation, downtown development, and the CVB minutes from June 9th. I need a motion for approval of the consent agenda, please.
So move.
Thank you, Larry. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Little. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries, that passes. As we have no public comment tonight, we will move straight into business items, and we'll have Logan give his report and the update from Mr. Bailey.
Thank you, Mayor. We are a busy little city, so we've got a lot going on, but I'll just hit a couple of things that we're working on, a lot of it behind the scenes. Working on the local option sales tax negotiation with the county. This is a big deal for us because if you're not totally familiar with local option sales tax, it is the 1 penny sales tax that is collected at the register that then is used to roll back or give credit for property tax. So the better outcome we get with the county, the more we can assure our citizens here in the city that we're giving them a better deal on their property taxes. So that's ongoing. I imagine that'll take a few more months before we get to our final certificate negotiations. We've had lots of development discussions. I know the market's a little shaky out there, but it doesn't seem to have slowed down in Monroe yet. So staff, Brad, Pat, everybody involved, utilities, we're at full tilt. Talking to a host of developers, residential, commercial, industrial, whatever it may be. Hasn't slowed down at all for us yet. Staff has been working on a lot of code and zoning updates to implement as we are still operating under the moratorium for preliminary plats of major subdivisions. We've got a lot of work to do to tighten up those things to help ensure that, you know, Monroe stays Monroe. Downtown Green construction crews should start mobilizing in early September. You know, as with everything, it's dependent on the labor forces that they can get going and some of the materials, but that's the plan right now. We got contracts in hand. We'll send that back to them tomorrow, hopefully, and get that kick-started. The westbound on-ramp, the city and the county, we've partnered together on that with the state. We've pushed that along about as far as we can here locally. It's in the state's hands. They have now assigned a construction firm to get that started. I don't have an exact date of when they're going to get that started. And to refresh your memory, that is on Charlotte Rowell Boulevard at 78, so that you can go westbound off Charlotte Rowell just below the Publix there. doing some alleyway and drainage work along Spring Street and Wayne Street. You've probably seen that this week. We're making a big mess out there, but, you know, got to make the mess to improve everything. We've got an RFP out right now for Blaine Station, so those of you in the real estate world, send them our way. We've got that out. You know, it's where the new police department is. That whole shopping center is master planned. As you remember, we did that late last year. So that is out for RFP, or RFQ, rather, for the qualifications. We're also working with the DDA on prospective buyer contract for the Milner Aycock building. So talks are progressing well there for that contract. And next month, we'll have that short-term rental ordinance for you. We've been making a few little amendments with legal staff. So that is being touched up right now. And as we talked about during our public safety meeting last week, we are greatly enhancing our code enforcement efforts with our city marshals. I met with them on Friday, and we're just beefing it up and going in a little bit harder direction, as we talked about at length in that last meeting. Plenty more to cover from the assistant city administrator, but I won't bore you too much. CDBG 2020 stormwater project, we've talked about that for many months. The only thing left is the inlet covers, and that whole project is completed. Appreciate everybody's patience on it. The taxiway design out at the airport, that's in progress right now. Wayne Street water tank, you've seen that be completed, and restrooms at Pilot and Matthews Park have been completed. And that is the balance of the report.
Thank you, Logan. Are there any questions?
When you say the RFQ is out there for Blaine Street Station, where can people go to find
We
it?
have a landing page on our website. It should be at the top. You can be directed there, or you can give us a call. We can direct you to all the information. There's, we've sent it out to several big firms in the whole metro Atlanta area. We've had a considerable amount of interest so far. That closes on August 26th, I do believe. So if you know anybody, send them our way.
Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, we'll move to department request for the purchase of a truck. Mr. Middlebrooks.
Thank you, Mayor. Asking your approval to purchase a 2022 Chevrolet service body truck. We had this truck bought at 48. The salesman decided to take lunch, and somebody sold the truck. So this truck's coming in on their next shipment in September, and this was the best he could do, was the 51,889. So it's $2,800 above what we had in our CIP budget.
With 200,000 miles on it?
No,
Old one has.
the old one.
Oh, to replace it?
Yeah,
Okay,
we're
I was
replacing, I'm
about to-
sorry, yeah.
Wow, used cars have really gone up. Are there any questions for Rodney? Sorry about that. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
I have a motion by Mr. Little. Is there a second? And a second by Mr. Bradley. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries, that passes. Thank you, Rodney. Old business, preliminary plat review, River Point. Logan, you want to talk about this, or should we just move forward with a table?
Yeah, I won't get into the details, but I met with the group along with Brad and Rodney yesterday, late yesterday afternoon, making some headway on some of the really deep technical items insofar as utilities and some of the plating elements. But they've asked, obviously, to postpone it one more month while we try to get some of these elements ironed out.
Motion to
Table.
table.
I have a motion to table by
30
Ms.
days.
Malcolm. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Nathan. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries, that passes and will be tabled till next month. Moving to the public hearing, rezone for 0 Charlotte Royale Boulevard. Mr. Calendar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The request before council this evening is a rezone modification to the Pavilion project. The zoning is currently PCD. They're asking to rezone the property basically to PCD with modifications. This is necessary in order for them to make changes to their pattern book. So they're requesting before council this evening to make 4 total changes to the pattern book, and I'm going to briefly go through those. So the first change is increasing the maximum height within the pavilion to a 5-story requirement. It does not have a dimension attached to that. That way there provides some flexibility in the actual building height. We're not trying to limit them in any way. That way it will enable some creativity on the height of those structures. They are planned for some hotel lots within the development, and I think this would be a flexible option for them by having it be at 5 stories. So they are also asking too, in the same paragraph in the plan book, to allow for a zero lot line subdivision. And this is for the large shopping center parcel. They want to be able to create a fee simple option for that property in order to subdivide, I think, their larger tenant from the remaining shops. The third amendment they're asking for in the plan book is to increase the minimum parking allowed, and this would be specifically applicable to the outlots. They're also adding a variance option within the plan book. Currently, there is none. The plan book now currently is restrictive as far as parking is concerned. There's not an option for them to go anywhere beyond what the pattern book allows. So the variance addition at least gives them a procedural option to come in front of council if someone wishes to increase parking beyond what is requested. The fourth modification is changing the architectural appearance on one of their tenant buildings. I believe it's to accommodate the specific user within the building itself. So the Planning Commission and the staff have taken a look at their request. Both staff and Planning Commission have recommended to council there be 2 conditions, recommendation of approval with 2 conditions. That being a condition regarding the 0 lot line subdivision, the language in the section 430 of the pattern book, that it only be applicable to the shopping center parcel. They have contrary language that deals with the outlots only having 1 use and things of that nature, and that would be conflictive. So we were asking that to be specific in that first condition. The second condition is our recommendation to park the outlots with a certain number of spaces per square feet and seats within restaurants. And I'm happy to dig into this a little bit deeper. There was some in-depth discussion at the Planning Commission meeting, so allow me briefly to do that. So currently, the parking requirement within the pattern book is 1 space per 5 seats and 1 space per 600 square feet, with a maximum of 130% allowed of the minimum required spaces. This is exactly the same as it is in your current zoning ordinance, with the exception of the 135% max being allowed versus 120. So a 3,000 square foot restaurant with 60 seats is going to end up being allowed to have a total of 23 spaces. So the applicant provided you in their proposed amendment a range. Basically, there's a table inside this page. It's very difficult to read on this screen, so I'll try to blow this up. So they provided you ranges of the parking that's proposed. And in the first column, you can see this is the current plan book allowance. So they've identified their proposed tenant users, and the ones they're currently engaged with are identified in bold and blue. So you can see that the current parking requirement may fall short of what the expectation is from their potential clients or the persons they're trying to sell these outlots to. And for example, the first one here that you can identify, the tenant is asking for 65 potential spaces. The plan book would only permit 39. So they have requested in their first submittal to make that 1 space per 3 seats and 1 space at 350 square feet, 135% max of that minimum allowed. That jumps the parking allowed up to a certain number. It helps in some cases bump that range up a little bit, but I felt like when you compared that to what the current zoning ordinance allows and the pattern book, this is basically doubling the allowance. So in their second version of their submittal, it's kind of shown there in gray, they submitted additional ranges at our request to provide some additional numbers would be the best way to describe it for the council to make the best possible decision on what the parking should be within the pavilion in comparison to the rest of the city. So we had analyzed the ones that they've engaged with, the ones that are in bold and blue. Staff, myself, had analyzed the other locations in similar markets and how those entities were parked, and based on what they're asking for from the city. And we felt that the requirement at one space per 4 seats with the one space at 400 square feet with the 150% max closely aligned to the city council's goal for limiting and not over parking sites and trying to accommodate their proposed tenant users. And that pretty much was a nutshell of the discussion. We had the planning commission, and so we still stand behind the 2 recommended conditions that planning commission's forwarded to council. And that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Brad. Are there any questions for Mr. Callender? So, Brad, you're good with the building height? Okay.
Yeah, that's,
You're good with the allowing a variance in their pattern book?
that was at our recommendation.
Okay,
That's the same procedure allowed in our current zoning ordinance.
okay. I'll declare this portion of the meeting open for public input. I saw Mr. Argo in the audience. John, would you like to come up? Tell us what you got.
John Argo with MAB, the owner and developer of the Monroe Pavilion Shopping Center. Certainly want to thank all of you that we've brought it along this far. We have a number of businesses that have been opening, including Publix and a number of Marshalls, Ross, Ulta, so forth, since February. I don't know if you've been to the center lately, but Hibbett is building out in anticipation of an opening later this month. Pet Sense is building out inside in anticipation of an open later this month. Our most recent lease we've signed, I think many of you are aware now, is Old Navy, which I think a lot of folks will be excited about. Their contractor has moved into the space and is building out. I think he's trying to finish by the end of September so they can open around November 1. We also have a bath, what I would call a bath soap tenant. We've signed an LOI with recently. The lease is not signed, but it's moving along. That's a 4,000-foot user. They'll be next to Planet Fitness. They're targeting the first quarter of 23 opening. We've had a good bit of success. I'd submitted, I think, by email to a number of you just a site plan that gives you kind of a tenant roster of who's out there, as well as the people we have at contract for the outlots. Regarding the Planning Commission recommendation, we're fine with the hotel. We actually have a hotel user under contract. They're looking at doing 140, 160 rooms. That's exciting. I think Monroe has needed a chain hotel for some considerable amount of time. We have 4 restaurants at contract. I've got a couple of sit-downs that are that we're working with as well. Really, the only port of departure we have with the Planning Commission is we're just a few spaces short. Their recommended table leaves us a little deficient as far as the needs of the restaurants. I can name those for you. It's Panda Express, it's Whataburger, Huey Magoo's, and McAllister's. That's 4 of what we hope will be many, many more. The shopping center is designed to accommodate a lot of food, and we've got infrastructure in place, roads, traffic signals, utilities, drainage, all kinds of things that are already in place. So by adding a few more parking spaces, we aren't in any way impairing the infrastructure we put on the ground. It's designed to support this level of development. So what we'd like to do, if the council will consider it, we'd like to substitute the parking table that we came up with, which does meet the needs of our restaurant users. And they've asked me to make that request of council. Basically, it's one space per 3 seats, plus 1 space per 350 square feet. Brad, I hope I'm saying it right, plus 135%. And that gets us this the extra 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces. We're very close to what the Planning Commission approved, but we need a little more, just a little more to make sure that these restaurants will indeed say yes to Monroe. We don't want them going to Loganville or Winder or Covington or they have plenty of food places. We've been trying to get food places to Monroe. Are we able to put up that slide, Brad?
So you want the double, the 65 per, instead of 35?
I don't have a pointer, and I don't see very well.
66 instead of 35?
This is
We're-
one
we're-
space per
I
3
think-
seats.
I think he's highlighted in 1 per 3 plus the 1 per 350. that was the low end of our recommendation. We have gone back to each of the individual users after the planning commission and showed them the far right column, which is what planning commission recommended. If you can see, we're just a few spaces apart. We're like 6 or 8 from McAllister's, which is fast casual. And then for the what they call fast food and drive-through, we're 3 or 4 or 5 spaces short. So we'd like, y'all have been code flexible with us before to create kind of our own zoning for the shopping center, and that's what we need now. So we're asking you to be code flexible one more time to get us a few more spaces so I know I can satisfy the contract requirements of these users. I will share with you something that I think many of us know just from meeting out. Our pattern book was put in place pre-pandemic. I mean, nobody anticipated that. This is 2018, 2019 vintage. Post-pandemic, all the restaurants are operating differently. Previously, it was primarily indoor dining. Now they've added patios, they've added curbside pickup, they've added delivery, catering, food trucks. So they have about 5 or 6 different channels of business that they're still serving out of that one building. And along with that, additional channels they have to serve as additional staffing they need to do that. And additional customer traffic is coming to the building because it's not just indoor dining anymore. It's you can patio, you can call ahead, curbside pickup, you can get Grubhub or DoorDash to deliver. They have a big catering business, and it's taking all of those business channels today for the restaurants to make a living. The upshot is, pre-pandemic, maybe some of the lesser parking requirements worked. Post-pandemic, we need a few more spaces. So that's really where the genesis of this request is really from those individual users. So I can assure you that if the council will favor us with a positive recommendation, I can make the phone calls I need to make to these folks. Because what they're asking me is, John, did we get the parking we needed to succeed here? They want to be in Monroe. That's the good news. We've got them at contract, and really it's really up to the will of the council to say, can we provide them with enough parking? And I don't feel like it's overparked. We looked at other jurisdictions. The parking space maximum in that pink column is just a few spaces ahead of the parking space minimums. We looked at Loganville, Covington, Conyers, Winder, Walton County. So our cap is not in any way, they'll honor the cap, but it's not in any way over parking. In another jurisdiction, they would have to meet way, way more spaces as a minimum, but we're just asking for a little bit higher maximum so they can succeed in Monroe. So I'm open to questions with that.
How many total spaces are you really asking for?
Again,
How many total spaces are you asking for?
it'll vary by restaurant, but if you take, take let's do the very bottom one. The Planning Commission in blue recommended 43. Our request would allow 50. If you see the column that says tenant required parking for the applicant, they need 46. So 43 leaves them 3 short. That's how close I am. So we're proposing that pink column, which will get them what they need.
So that's, you actually asking for the pink column, the one they got up there now?
That's the pink column is what we're asking for. I think it's pink. Whatever color, the highlighted column.
And the right column is what?
Right column is what the Planning Commission recommended, and it leaves us just a few spaces short. So we're very close. But I need to meet those minimums where it says tenant required parking.
Basically 28.
Yeah.
So this what Brad saying at the end, when you saying you want the Miller, that should be a total of 28 spots, if I'm counting correctly.
Yes, the one in the middle, correct. And we have at the very top, we have a casual dining chain that is on the verge of submitting a contract. They haven't. I wish they had. I'd had better news if they had a stronger case, but that 112 that we would get is right at their 113. And that would be a very nice sit-down restaurant. The food tends to congregate and follow each other. So if I can go back to them and say, I've got enough parking now for you, I'm confident they'll go ahead and go to contract. The Planning Commission recommendation leaves them about 17 or 18 spaces short. So I'm trying to set the stage for who we have in hand now. that we know we can move ahead with, as well as who I'm courting that we can get if we can move the parking maximum up just a few spaces.
Okay. Are there any other questions for Mr. Argo?
Well, the way I see it, you've got your parcels, but you've got overflow parking all outside of these particular sites, right?
No, ma'am. Each individual lot, these are all on individual platted lots, they have to be self-contained on their parking. They have to satisfy their minimum parking requirement on their lot. That's a zoning requirement. It's also our declaration of covenants and restrictions. The shopping center parking lot is a big parking lot, but we've got 30 inline tenants there that are already sharing parking space. If you can pull up the site, do you have the site plan for the pavilion? Y'all have a slide for that, Brad? You have a slide for the shopping center site plan? The full site? Yeah, the whole, trying to answer Lee's question. Yeah, I think there was a slide earlier. Yeah, Lee, if you can see those four individual red buildings, the parking lot for the big center, those are 10 tenants. They're also food tenants, and they do share parking already with the shopping center lineup that's Publix and Ross and Marshalls. So that parking field is maxed out with shared parking already. The individual lots at the bottom, the yellow lots at the bottom, are the individual lots across the boulevard where they have to have their own individual parking requirement and meet it on their own property.
John, what about the hotel? I think at 160 rooms, that's a lot of parking there, and it's very walkable.
Well, again, the hotel is synergistic with the food. That's, if we can bring the food, we can get the hotel. That's, they're looking for that type of synergy, because they're gonna have, at 70% occupancy, they'll have 250 people a night looking for lunch, dinner, breakfast, and certainly if we can provide food opportunities very close by, that helps bring that hotel. That hotel is at contract. And the outcome here of providing food for that will help us move that hotel forward and realize that for Monroe, for sure.
But am I correct that the ones you're asking about now on parking are in those yellow lots?
Yes, sir, I don't have
South?
a pointer. I could point at them, but I don't have a pointer.
No, south.
Oh, down here.
Yeah, lots.
We have 4 of those lots under contract to restaurants right now that are in need of a few more parking spaces.
Okay, so question I've got is, maybe for Brad or somebody is, on those lots that he's got laid out here, the lot size that's laid out is okay? It's,
As far as as far as the way they're platted, there's no issue as far as development is concerned.
but the plat size for a particular lot,
Yeah, each lot is actually probably oversized. They're all an acre and a half at a minimum.
okay.
You probably could put actually 2 of his users on one of those outlets.
So it's a question on the parking is whether or not you pave that entire lot or not a whole lot, but how much of that lot could be under asphalt?
And green.
Not, the issue is not, in this case, lot coverage. That's not what's on the table in front of the city council. So we're not concerned about the lot coverage in this request.
So what's the purpose of limiting parking spaces if it's not lot coverage?
Well, first, the city council's policy is to not overpark properties, and that's in your current zoning ordinance now. You have a parking maximum in the zoning ordinance, which is what they adopted in their pattern book in 2019. It's the exact same parking requirement that we have inside the city. And at that time, they stated in the pattern book that that was their anticipated parking for their outlots. So they elected to make those lots an acre and a half. Could they have made them smaller or larger? Sure. The issue at hand, though, is not whether or not they'll be overparked and there'll be too much lot coverage. If anything, some of them probably will not be large enough to park 160 parking spaces that they're asking for. That would require over an acre alone of just asphalt just for parking. So depending on the size of a restaurant, there may be one or two outlots they're saying they want 160 spaces for. We flip back to this chart right here. So, I mean, you're talking, this right here, that's an acre at least of parking just for the parking space. That's not the drive that's associated with getting that parking space, the building, the sidewalks, or anything. So some of those outlots may or may not be large enough for some of these that they're identified that they want. I mean, 177 would be, that alone is like, I did the calculation, at 270 square foot dedicated per parking space is like 1.1 acres. And these are 1.5 acre sites. That's just the parking space and the drive behind the parking space.
We do have larger lots in outlots 1 and 2.
But that's for the hotels.
We have a hotel lot, but no, we actually have larger lots for 1 and 2. Right now, I don't have a casual dining user that big. The top line, I have a casual dining user that needs 113, and I'd like to get them 112. They're not at contract, but I'd like to, I think we can get them if we can get this approved tonight.
I don't know if it's in Brad's analysis, but for a point of clarity, can you explain to us what the approximate 8 to 10 crosswalks are for, if not for shared parking between the outlots and the primary?
Are you talking about crossing Pavilion Boulevard?
Yeah.
They're for anybody using the sidewalk. We have sidewalks on both sides, so we have to provide crosswalks at certain
So
intervals.
none of
where
that,
we have intersections.
so none of that capacity on the northern
We can't, you
part.
can't develop on an outlot and put your parking in the shopping center parking field. Can't do that.
I think that was in the original spirit of the agreement back in 2018, I think, when we talked about the interconnectivity.
Yeah.
Just the
Yeah, I mean,
interparcel
I hope
access.
somebody shopping at Ross would walk to a restaurant, or somebody at the restaurant would go across the street and buy something at Ross. So the interconnectivity is there, but it doesn't really relate to the parking.
Mr. Mayor, it's not my place, but may I ask Mr. Argo a question? It's not within my place whatsoever to do this.
Yeah,
but
actually-
There's a point of
actually,
fact
Brad,
that
it
this
is- it
council
is
needs
in
to
your
hear from the
purview,
planning
please.
commission meeting that occurred. So, Mr. Argo, at the planning commission meeting, you brought two of the restaurateurs who are proposing to be on this site that's in blue, and they confirmed that that number of spaces that we've recommended would work for them, did they not?
They are franchisees of that.
They did or didn't confirm that that would work for them,
I'm-
did they not?
I'm-
It's
I'm
on the
answering the
record at the
que- I'm
planning
answering-
commission, and it's in the minutes.
I'm answering the question. They are franchisees of that corporate. After they made that comment, they checked with corporate. Corporate said they had to have 60 to 65 spaces if they were going to proceed with that restaurant.
Okay, so may I continue? I
One
have
more question, and then that'll be it. One more question. and then
Okay,
that'll be it.
so they've indicated that, so the same size restaurant that opened in 2021, for the same restaurateur had fewer spaces than what's being identified here. Have you identified the locations that I'm referring to, such as Milledgeville and Fayetteville? Because those locations did not open with the tenant-required spaces, and they had fewer spaces with a larger restaurant.
I can't speak to other.
But I
only-
did.
I
I
can only
reviewed
speak to the
those
context that I have tonight. I can't speak to the other decisions.
Thank you, Mr. Callender. Thank you, Mr. Argo. Are there any more questions for John?
So if we were to allow these additional spaces that Mr. Argo has requested on those parcels, whether they're an acre and a half, this will definitely take away from any or some of the green space plantings that we have required in our overlay, right?
It's a fair question. As far as the landscaping requirements on the lots, it probably will not impact that. They're not going to be able to remove or encroach, the minimum setbacks on each of the lots.
So,
In addition to that, there's easements that run along the edge of the boundary along 78 that would prohibit them placing anything along those areas too, so.
so if council were to say, okay, proceed with the requested one space per 3 seats and one space per 350 square feet, what is the likelihood that they can actually fit all those spaces on a lot?
Is that a question for me?
Or it'd be for either of you.
Okay. The answer is, all of these folks are in their due diligence, and they've done preliminary site plans, and so we know that they can fit those on the lots. Very careful in their site selection in that way.
Okay. Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here in the audience who'd like to speak for the rezone? Is there anyone here who'd like to speak against the rezone? Hearing none, I'll declare that portion of the meeting closed. There'll be no action taken at this time until we get to new business, which happens to be right now. Rezone at 0 Charlotte Rowell Boulevard. This is just for council members to discuss and any action by the council, and you may ask questions only of each other or Mr. Argo. Anyone?
Well, I'm prepared to make a motion, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to move that we grant the rezone with the 2 conditions that were approved by the Planning Commission and recommended by staff.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
There was a second by Ms. Malcolm and the motion by Mr. Dickinson. Is there any discussion?
So I understand the motion is to accept the recommendation from the Planning Commission. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Is there any more discussion, any questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries, that passes. Excuse me one second. Moving to the application of spirituous liquors and beer and wine on premise consumption at Strange Taco. I think I saw Mr. Collin come in. Hey, Chris. Paul, is this application?
That application's in order, Mayor.
Thank you. Chris, would you like to say anything? You're just here for the...
Questions, but I figured I'd walk up here in case you did, so you could hear me.
Show off those knees.
Yeah, these are my knees.
Are there any questions for Chris? I think it's probably gonna be a slam dunk, so.
When are you opening?
Before September ends, that's the goal. So we should be trying to get our CO right around mid-September, and then hopefully we can find people to work and sell tacos to people.
Good luck. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
I have a motion by Mr. Dickinson to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Gregory. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries, that passes. Congratulations. We are excited and look forward to it.
We're happy to be here. Thank you, guys. You all have a great night.
Thank you. Moving to an appointment for the Planning Commission. This is to reappoint Randy Camp to serve a 5-year term to expire September 1st, 2027. Randy Camp would like to continue to serve on the Planning Commission, and I would need a motion to reappoint him for a 5-year term to expire in September of 2027.
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Little. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Bradley. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries, that passes. Moving to the approval of the 2022 millage rate. Ms. Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor. This is, what you have before you is what was presented to you at our retreat the first of the month. This is to adopt the full rollback rate of the millage rate for 2022. The current millage rate is 7.404 mils, and the recommendation is to roll back to 7.060 mils. This is a reduction of 0.344 mils from 2021. This is due to an increase in growth and reassessments in the digest. The net digest had an increase of about 22.5% over 2021. So the recommendation from staff is to do the full rollback.
Thank you, Beth. Are there any questions for Ms. Thompson? I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the full rollback.
I have a motion to approve the full rollback from Mr. Gregory. Gregory, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Little. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? Motion carries, that passes. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Beth. Moving to Municipal Court Services Agreement from Southeast Corrections. Mr. Probst?
Thank you, Mayor. This is just a renewal of our probation services. This is zero cost to the city. It's paid for by the probationer of the municipal court. And Joseph Bryant back there, he'll be managing this contract as long as, with everything else over there in the municipal court. So it's a pretty easy deal. It's 2023 through 2027.
Are there any questions for Logan? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Mr. Dickinson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Malcolm. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries, that passes. We moved along pretty quickly tonight, everybody. Moving to district items, does there anyone have anything to discuss or report regarding your district? Moving to Ms. Malcolm.
I would just remind people that tickets are still on sale for the historical tour,
Through
That-
tomorrow, right?
I believe, yes. And that will be held Saturday.
Moving to Ms. Crawford.
No, I don't have anything.
Mr. Boyce?
No, sir.
And Ms. Little? All right. Mr. Bradley? Mr. Garrett? Nope. Mr. Gregory? Mr. Dickinson?
Nothing.
Oh, that was quick and painless. We need to adjourn to executive session, and I need a motion, please.
So moved.
A motion by Ms. Malcolm. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Gregory. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. We'll adjourn to executive session.